Hi, I'm Chris Burns from Techie Gurus, and welcome back to the channel. So let's dive into everybody's favorite topic, passwords. Yay! Get excited. All right, so we know everybody hates passwords, right? You go to websites, a lot of people reuse passwords. Doesn't matter if it's their email, their bank account, whatever. The problem is that's very dangerous. You don't want to reuse passwords across multiple sites. The reason is you have a password breach where there's billions of passwords already out there, and they guess what one password is, they have access to all of your other things. So a good common practice will be to not do that. But let's talk about this at a deeper level. So Verizon every year does a data breach investigation report. And last year they actually said that 81% of breaches were caused by compromised passwords. So let that dig in. 81% of breaches were by just password compromise. So what does that mean? That means exactly what we're talking about. People reuse passwords. One thing got hacked, the password got leaked. Then hackers can do things called password spraying, where they just spray out passwords against accounts, and suddenly they have access to a lot of things. Business email compromise is actually one of the most dangerous things, because once they have access to your email, they can then go in and change other things. So I'll give you an example. I told the story a couple weeks ago, but I'll kind of reiterate it. We had a prospect come to us. They had a business email compromise. They had their Salesforce account password changed. The hacker had set up all the rules and everything, so they never saw that email come into the mailbox. They changed it. They changed bank account. They stole almost $100,000. So that's the level that we're talking at. So let's talk about passwords. So the one thing that really annoys me today in 2021 is companies still force you to change passwords. I know, everybody thinks that's a good practice. Well, actually, it's not. The National Institute of Standards and Technology, NIST is what I'll refer to it as because that's more commonly used. They actually said in 2018 to stop doing that. The reason is if a password isn't compromised, there's no reason to actually change it. But there's a catch. And the catch is you need to follow some basic password guidelines. So let's kind of dive into that. First of all, the minimum password you should ever use is 8 characters. Now, I don't think 8 characters is secure enough. I think you should really go to 12 or 15. But you know what? 8 is what NIST says, so 8 is the minimum. You have the ability to use special characters, but you don't necessarily have to. That's number 2. So number 3 would be also restrict sequential and repetitive characters. So you can't put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, QWERTY. I had to look at keyboard for a second. A bunch of A's, a bunch of 1s, a bunch of 0s. Those should be restricted, right? You want to also restrict context-specific passwords, so like the name of the business, the name of the person, things like that. Another one is you want to restrict commonly used passwords, like, you know, people use like password, but put a 0 in there, or put an @ sign for like where the A would be. That's leet speak. That is not good. That's very easily cracked. And the last part that they recommend is you want to restrict passwords obtained for previous breaches. So if you ever go to haveibeenpwned.com and you go out there, and I'll post that below, but you can see like if your email's been compromised. We have some dark web searches that we do to kind of show that as well. But ideally, you need to know that. So there are password lists out there that we can actually apply to most that will block those passwords. So there's billions of passwords that have been used. Those should be blocked. So when you create a password, it shouldn't allow you to create that. Now, there's some magic behind the scenes that has to happen for that, but that's something that's a deeper topic. So I want to take this a little further. I want to talk about good hygiene beyond what NIST says about how you set your password. Honestly, don't reuse passwords across sites. I know I touched on that earlier, but it's really important not to use the same password at your banking site that you do as your personal email. Or your business password, don't use it the same as like vendor logons and things like that. Because again, if they get it from one place, they can reuse it other places. So you want to use a password manager. LastPass or Keeper are 2 very good ones. There's other ones out there. I'm sure they work fine. We have more experience with LastPass or Keeper. But again, you could generate passwords that are secure. You don't have to memorize them. What you want to do though is you want to use a passphrase instead of a password. So especially for LastPass or any kind of password manager, use a passphrase. So come up with a sentence that you can use that's maybe 15, 20, 30, 25 characters that's easily memorable to you, but it's a passphrase, so it's a lot harder to crack. And that's what you want to go with. Length is the key here, not necessarily complexity. So the longer it is, the harder it is to crack. And then lastly, you want to use multi-factor authentication. I know I harp on this, and a lot of times people will tell you, look, NIST doesn't recommend SMS, so text messages. That's actually not the case. We don't like text messages because there's something called SIM jacking, where somebody can steal, could call up Verizon or AT&T or T-Mobile or whatever, and they can steal your phone number, and then they have access to all your multi-factor authentication. That's why we don't like that. So you should use an app-based one. So Google Authenticator, Microsoft Authenticator. We personally like Duo for business because it's a little bit easier to kind of roll out to a company. Authy is another one, that one's free as well. So I'll put some links below for that as well. But I just wanted to kind of dive into that real quick. If you have any questions, comments, whatever, drop them down below. Hit us up on social media. You can always give us a phone call. I'm Chris Burns from Techie Gurus. I hope you have a great rest of your day and be safe out there.